Day 588 of doing a LeetCode problem every day until I get a job. All right, y'all, we're back again another day, another LeetCode problem where we're doing daily LeetCode problems. And today we have question number 3433, count mentions per user. The difficulty level is medium, but don't worry because you already know we're going to keep the solution as simple and easy to understand as possible. But before we get started, y'all, don't forget to like, hype, subscribe, comment, and share. And if you need any new Apple AirPods, go ahead and check out that link in the description so you can get you some. Now let's see what the question says. You are given an integer number of users representing the total number of users and an array events of size n times 3. Each event of I can be either of the following two types: a message event where a message that contains a message, timestamp, and mention string. This indicates that the set of users was mentioned in a message at timestamp. The mention string can contain one of the following tokens: an ID number where number is an integer in the range of 0 to number of users minus 1. There can be multiple IDs separated by a single white space and may contain duplicates. This can mention even the offline users. All mentions all users. Here mentions all online users. The second event is the offline event where it has offline timestamp and an ID. This event indicates that the user ID had become offline at timestamp for 60 time units. The user will automatically be online again at timestamp of I plus 60. Return an array mentions where mentions of I represents the number of mentions the users with ID I has across all message events. All users are initially online, and if a user goes offline or becomes back online, the status change is processed before handling any message event that occurs at the same timestamp. Note that a user can be mentioned multiple times in a single message event, and each mention should be counted separately. All right, y'all. Now that may seem a little bit confusing at first, so let's go ahead and take a look at these examples just to make sure that we are doing this problem correctly. So in example 1, we have our input number of users equals 2, events equals a 2D array of strings. First array has a string message, then 10, then ID 1 and ID 0. The next array has offline 11 and 0, and the last array has message 71 and here. The output is 2, 2, meaning each of these IDs got 2 mentions. So let's go through the explanation so we can see how they got these 2 mentions or this output from this input. So the explanation says initially all users are online. Okay, boom. Then it says at timestamp 10, ID 1 and ID 0 are mentioned. Mentions equals 1 and 1. So that's this array right here, right? First we start here, right? So at time 10, ID 0 and ID 1 are both, ID 1 and ID 0 are both mentioned. So we're going to add a count we're going to add the count to 0 and we're going to add the count to 1 like this. Boom. Then it says offline 11 at 11:0, right? So it says at timestamp 11, ID goes offline. So right now, this 0 or ID 0 is going offline. Boom. So now 0 is offline. Then at timestamp 71, which is this array right here, at timestamp 71, ID 0 comes back online and here is mentioned. So, and once here is mentioned, then we add both of these IDs get mentioned one more time. So now we have 2 mentions for each ID. The first mention was here, and then the first mention was here, and then the second mention was here when we called here. So let's come up here and see what here actually means. It says here mentions all users online. Boom. So it says right here it goes offline at 11. Now remember, when it goes offline at 11, it goes offline for 60 time units. So 0 is offline for 60 time units after 11, right? But 71 is 60 time units after 11. So 71 means 0 comes back online, right? So now at 71, that means ID 1 and ID 0 are back online. That's when we call here. And it says here mentions all online users. So since 0 just became back online at time 71, and we call here, which mentions all online users. That means ID 0 and ID 1 are both online again. So that's how the output is 2, because they already got mentioned once here. So right here, they already got mentioned once. So the count was already 1. Then when we called here, after 0 came back online, that mentions them again, and that adds 1 to both of their counts. So their final count ends up being 2, 2. So just in case that didn't make sense to y'all, let's take a look at example 2. So in example 2, we have our input number of users equals 2, events equals a 2D array of strings again. First array is message 10 ID 1 ID 0, then we go offline 11 0, and this time message 12 and all, right? So this time the time is changing and we're calling all. So let's see how we got this output. So it says initially all users are online, boom. Then at timestamp 10, ID 1 and ID 0 are mentioned, so mentions go 1 1, right? So same thing at 10, we mention ID 1 and ID 0. So right now they both have 1 mention each. Boom. Then at timestamp 11, ID 0 goes offline. So right now at 11, 0 is offline. Boom. Then at timestamp 12, we call all is mentioned. This includes offline users. So both 0, ID 0, and ID 1 are mentioned, and mentions now they have 2 mentions each. Because remember right here, they got 1 mention each. Then when we called all, now they have another mention, or we add 1 mention to those mentions, that 1 mention that they already had, and now they have 2 mentions, right? So when we call all, that's just another way of mentioning both of these or all of these IDs. And remember, all mentions all users, whether they're online or not, right? So all includes offline users. So even though we set 0 offline right here, all includes all users, whether they're offline or online. So this 0 is still going to get a mention count. And so in the end, they both got 2 mentions. Boom, 1 right here when they called all, and 1 right here at the beginning. Boom. So just in case that didn't make sense, let's take a look at example 3. So in example 3, we have our input numbers of users equals 2. This time events equals a 2D array of integers, or a 2D array of strings, but there's only 2 arrays. So first we have offline 10 is 0. So we know that sets 0 offline. Then we have message 12 here, which sends mentions to only the online users, right? So here mentions all online users. Boom. So let's see what it does, right? So initially all users are online. Boom. Then at timestamp 10, ID 0 goes offline. That's right here. 0's offline. Then we call here. At timestamp 12, we call here is mentioned. Because ID 0 is still offline, they will not be mentioned. So mentions is 0, 1, right? So in this case, 0 is offline, and then we call here. But here only mentions online users. So since 0 is offline, 0 doesn't get a mention, right? So we keep 0 at 0 with 0 mentions, but ID 1 gets a mention, so we can increment ID 1 by 1. Boom. And so that's why this 1 is right here, and it's a 0 right here, because ID 0 was offline, so they didn't catch this here mention. And that's thus the output being an array of integers 0 and 1. So I hope that makes sense to y'all. And now that we understand the question, let's get into the fun part, the actual solution. Solution is not that difficult at all. Now, the first thing we are going to want to do is we are going to come right here in these parameters, and we're just going to add consuming, just like this. Now, consuming is going to allow us to mutate in place, and no copy is going to be required when we mutate events. So now we need to sort the events by time, and events of 1 is going to be ascending. If 2 events have the same time, we're going to sort by event type, or event 0 descending. So we're going to come right here, and we need to sort events by saying events dot sort, open of the brackets, we're going to say $0 square bracket 1. Come outside of that, we're going to say equals $1 square bracket 1. Boom. Come outside the square bracket, say question mark. Then we're going to say So if this is true, this is going to return a Boolean. This question mark is going to let us know if it is true, then we are going to return $ square bracket 0 is greater than $1 square bracket 0. Boom. Then we'll come right here, put the colon. So if this right here is not true, then we're going to come over here and we will return an integer. Open up the parentheses. We're going to say $0 square bracket 1. Come outside those square brackets, put an exclamation point because it's optional. Then we're going to put is less than another integer. Open up the parentheses. $1 square bracket 1. Come outside of that and put the come outside the parentheses and put the well, first off, let me fix this because we need to close these parentheses right here. Boom. Then we come right here and we're gonna put the exclamation point. Boom. So my bad. Make sure y'all close these parentheses and keep these parentheses closed as well. Boom. Now we need an array to store how many mentions each user receives. So we'll come underneath this, declare a variable called mentions, and we'll set that equal to an array. Open up the parentheses, it's going to be repeating, colon, 0, comma, count, colon, is going to be number of users. Boom. Then we'll come underneath that, and we need to track until what time each user is considered offline, and status of I is going to store the time until which user I is offline. So we're going to declare a variable called status, and we're going to set that equal to an array. Open up the parentheses, we're going to say repeating, colon, 0, comma, count, colon, number of users. Boom. Then we could come underneath that and we're going to iterate through all sorted events. So we're going to say for event in events. We're going to open up the brackets and we are going to get the event timestamp by saying let time equals going to be an integer. Open up the parentheses. We're going to say event square bracket 1. Come outside of that and we're going to put the exclamation point. Boom. Now we're going to use a switch statement. So we're going to say switch event square bracket 0. And we're going to come outside of those square brackets and we're going to open up some brackets. And we are going to say case, put the quotation marks message, which should be all capitals. Boom. Come outside of those quotation marks, put a colon, come underneath that. And we are going to event 2 is going to contain the message check. So we're going to say switch event square bracket, event square bracket 2. Come outside of that and we're going to say dot first exclamation point, open up the brackets, and we're going to say case, open up the quotation marks I, come outside of that, we're going to say colon. Now we're going to split by spaces and convert IX to X, then increment each user mention count by coming underneath this. Let me fix this. Come right here underneath this, and we are going to say event square bracket 2, come outside of that dot, split, open up the parentheses, separator, colon, put the quotation marks and put a space right there. Come underneath this, we're going to say dot map, open up the brackets, we're going to say int, open up the parentheses, we're going to say $0 dot drop first, open up the parentheses, we're going to say 2, come outside of that, we're going to say exclamation point. Then we're going to come underneath that and we'll say dot for each, open up the brackets, we're going to say I and mentions square bracket I, come outside of those square brackets. We're going to increment it by saying plus equals 1. Boom. Now we need to handle case H. So we're going to come underneath this. And we are going to say case, quotation marks, put a capital H in there. And that's for here. And then we're going to come underneath this. So this H is for here. We're going to come underneath this. And we're going to say mentions dot indices. My bad, y'all. Let me make sure my spelling's right. Get rid of this I. Mentions dot indices. We're going to come underneath that. We're going to say dot for each. Open up the brackets. We're going to say I and mentions square bracket I. Come outside of that square bracket. We're going to say plus equals status square bracket I. Come outside of that square bracket. We'll say less than or equal to time. Then we'll say 1:0. Boom. Then we need to handle our default case. So we're going to come underneath this and we're going to say default colon and any other message mentions regardless of online status. So this is this message mentions everyone regardless of online status. So we're going to come right here and we'll say mentions dot indices again dot for each. Then we're going to open up the brackets. We're going to say I and mentions square bracket I plus equals 1. Boom. Then we'll come underneath this. We're going to say case, open up the quotation marks, this time offline, all caps. Boom. Come outside of that, colon. If a user goes offline for 60 seconds, then event 2 contains the user index. So we're going to say status, square bracket. Sorry, y'all. We could take off the caps lock. Status, square bracket, int, open up the parentheses, event, square bracket 2. Come outside of this parentheses, still inside the square bracket, put the exclamation point. Come outside of the square bracket, we'll say equals time plus 60. Boom. Come underneath that, we need to handle our default. So we're going to say default colon. So just some type of, if there's an unrecognized event type, then we could just ignore it. So we just come right here underneath this and say break. Boom. Now we need to return the final mention counts by coming right here. And we can say return mentions, y'all. That should be all she wrote. Let's give it a run. Make sure it runs properly before we submit it. Let's see. It's taking a little while, so I can only imagine something's not doing something. So let's see where the error is. It's a $sign doing something. Okay, so this should be $0 right here. Now let's give this a run. Hopefully that did the trick. Should, okay, expected after H. So it should be a colon right here. Let's run it again. Drum roll. Still have an error. So let's see where we went wrong. Make sure the spelling is right. Let me see. It should be separated. So what? Oh, this should be a question mark right here. Boom. Let's run it again. Drum roll. Still not there. Got to type. Let's fix that and run it again. Drum roll. Oh my goodness, y'all, what is going on? So let's see what we got going on here. I thought we were past this. Just a moment, y'all. Separ, it's a typo. These typos, man. Let's make sure that's right. Now let's run it. Drum roll. It's accepted, y'all. So let's go ahead and submit it. Make sure it's still accepted after we submit it. Let's see, and look at that, y'all. 41 milliseconds beats 100% of users. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I like to see, y'all. So, with that being said, I hope y'all learned something today, and I hope to see y'all here tomorrow for another day, another LeetCode problem. See y'all then.